Harang is texting her friend, Kong Dabin, about a heated moment that is happening right now. She is annoyed because she has been trying to study, but their loud sounds piercing into her room are preventing her from doing so. Kong Dabin seems more annoyed than she is, pointing out that things have been like this for her for 3 straight weeks. Because of the loud noises, Harang has been unable to focus on studying and her exam is fast approaching. Dabin feels like this guy has no regard for his neighbors, and just then, it goes quiet. Harang gets curious, leaning against the wall to listen in, hoping she could hear why it went quiet all of a sudden. She manages to hear something that makes her feel flustered. She is still thinking about what she heard when Kong Dabin sends her a DM. The notification sound startles her, so she tosses her phone out of shock. Just then, a woman walks into the room and informs her that she brought her some snacks. Her entry only startles Harang the more, and she notices this. The woman asks Harang why she is being jumpy, seeking to know if she is looking at something weird again. Harang, understanding how things are looking, pretends to be on a phone call, and the caller yelled into the phone and startled her. The woman doesn't buy the act, accusing Harang of reading boys' love comics again. Harang then furthers her lie, claiming she is on the phone with her friend Dabin. It doesn't look like her mom is buying the act, but before she can say more, Harang rushes to the door and tells her that she is going out to talk to Dabin on the phone for a while. The woman turns out to be Harang's mother, and even though she knows Harang is lying, she permits her to go for 30 minutes. As soon as she leaves the room, her mother sighs deeply, confessing that she does not see how Harang will ever get her law degree when she seems so distracted. Meanwhile, Harang, who has just escaped, leans on her door, relieved that she has just dodged a bullet. She knows that if her mom found out that she was eavesdropping on what the guy next door was doing, she would have been scolded severely. She is getting goosebumps just thinking about what would have happened if her mom busted her when she gets another DM from Dabin. Dabin wishes to have a chat with Harang's noisy neighbor, but Harang assures her she does not need to worry. She texts Dabin that she will try to ignore the noise. After sending the message, she goes back to enjoying her day, only to be bothered by insects that she feels are noisier than her neighbors. Harang decides to ignore their buzzing and enjoy her day since it's been a while since she had such a clear day. During her time outside, Dabin thinks about the sounds that come from her neighbor's house. She admits to herself that the sounds truly are not loud, however, it is she who can't stop eavesdropping on what is happening next door. She thinks about this, the more she leans against the balcony, until she notices her neighbor come out of his house. Because of him, Harang loses concentration and slips. Just as she is about to fall to her doom, she is saved by her neighbor. The near-fall experience scared Harang half to death, but even upon that, her focus is now on the chest of her neighbor who has her in his arms. When he notices that she has lingered in his arms, he asks her if she can stand on her own. Immediately, Harang gets off and apologizes to him for the delay. She then thanks her neighbor for saving her life, but still has her mind on his physique. He had always had baggy shirts on which hid how ripped he was, and now she understands why he keeps getting all that heated action. She stares at her neighbor until he feels like she wants to say something to him, when suddenly a guy pops out from her neighbor's place. The guy is clearly unclad and asks Harang's neighbor when he is coming back inside. Harang is shocked to the core when she finds out it's a guy. While Harang's neighbor calmly discusses with his love interest, Harang just finds it hard to believe that he goes guys too. He maintains his cold persona and instructs Harang to go in since it's cold. He notices that she isn't listening and doesn't get why, unaware of the fact that she is trying to take a call. On taking the call, before Harang can say anything, Dabin loudly demands to know why Harang isn't texting back. She suspects that Harang went over to her neighbor's place by herself. Dabin is so loud that Harang's neighbor hears them talking about him. A clearly embarrassed Harang tries to quiet Dabin down before she embarrasses her even more. She does this by claiming she doesn't know what Dabin is talking about, but her attempts to silence Dabin fail. Instead, Dabin gets even louder, reminding Harang that she had called her neighbor a pervert who slept around with different people daily. This echoes throughout the hallway, so it's clear the neighbor heard what Harang said about him. After that day, 3 days passed by and each day Harang snuck into her own home. On the fourth day, she was thinking about how she felt like she was shooting a spy movie when her neighbor suddenly came out. She was surprised to see him, and once their eyes met, an awkward silence filled the hallway. Noticing how awkward things are, Harang decides to greet her neighbor. To her surprise, he ignores her and just pulls out a stick of cigarette and gets to puffing. Harang, on the other hand, feels embarrassed and sad that this man wouldn't say hello back to her once. Since he ignored her, she decided to do the same and head to school. Days went by and the day for Harang's law school exam results to be released finally came. It was an extremely rainy day, so much so that Harang felt like the cold pierced through the walls of her apartment. On this day, when Harang hides in a playground close to her house, her neighbor approaches her. He comes to her in the downpour and gives her the most memorable day of her life. A few hours before Harang's neighbor approaches her, she sits under a slide to shade her from the downpour a bit. She reaches out to see if the rain has gone down a bit, but discovers that it hasn't, since it's dropping so hard it causes her hand to hurt. While sitting there, she wonders if her mom is hurting like her, taking her mind back to when she told her mom about her bar result. While desperately holding Harang's hand, her mother reminded her that she had graduated with honors from Korea National University. Her mother then tried to encourage her by assuring her that she shouldn't be disappointed for failing the exam. She declared that all she wanted from Harang was for Harang to graduate from the university's law school and pursue a career as a prosecutor. That was all Harang's mother claimed she wanted from her, and when Harang heard this, she got even more hurt. For some reason, she felt her mother saw her as a replacement for her son who passed away. When she brought up this point, her mother was confused, but Harang didn't stop there. With tear-filled eyes, she accused her mother of wanting her to spend all her life living the life her brother would have lived. This was a very sensitive topic, so it left Harang's mother stunned and unable to follow after Harang as Harang rudely walked out on her. On getting outside, Harang spots her noisy neighbor casually having a smoke while watching the rain. The second their eyes met, she tried to dry her eyes, knowing fully well that that guy was the last person she wanted to see her that way. She immediately felt embarrassed, and for the first time in a long while, her neighbor tried to speak with her. Hearing his voice only caused her to feel more hurt and run off. She kept running to nowhere in particular until she got to the playground and stopped to catch her breath. That brief moment of rest made Harang realize she was cold, so she took cover under a slide. She then noticed that her cold was caused by her being drenched from the rain. She also noticed her eyes had become puffy because of the crying. It was under the slide she reminisced on what led to her being there, but then a shadow was cast on her, disrupting her thoughts. Harang looks up to see the shadow was caused by her neighbor, who looks down at her with that emotionless look on his face. Harang's tears begin to resurface, so she claims that her reason for running off is because he startled her. Since he says nothing to her and her tears are so obvious, Harang lets them fall and permits her neighbor to stop standing silently and laugh at her all he wants. Even so, her neighbor remains silent and just places his umbrella above Harang to shield her from the rain and walks away. His act of kindness surprises Harang, to the point that she is stunned for a bit. Nevertheless, she picks up the umbrella and follows her neighbor back to their apartment complex. He then leaves her at her door and walks into his home, ignoring her when she asks him to wait. Harang freezes for a second, not knowing whether to go into his house and give him back his umbrella or not. She concludes that it's not cool to walk into a stranger's house. However, as she turns away to leave, her neighbor tells her that if she isn't coming in, she should close the door. Harang sees this as an invitation, plus she has always been curious about this guy, so she doesn't hesitate to walk into his house. When she walks in, he is drying himself and expresses how shocked he is that she came in, since he didn't expect her to. He can't help but observe how soaked she is, as she tells him that she came in because she had to return his umbrella. She also explains that she cannot go home right now and asks him to lend her a towel so she can dry herself. He had gotten a bit distracted by Harang's soaked frame, so he sighs deeply and tosses his towel at her. Harang, on the other hand, doesn't understand why her neighbor reacted that way. He decides to go in for a bit and assures Harang that she can sit in the living room since he doesn't care if it gets wet. Harang does as he asks, heading to the living room to sit while thinking about how she didn't expect his place to look so ordinary. When she gets to the living room, she realizes that his place isn't that ordinary because of the many bottles she sees lying around. It's a mess, and she wonders when the last time this guy did his laundry was, since his clothes look so stiff. For some time, Harang recalls that she does not live there, so she shouldn't be so judgmental. Harang does not feel comfortable at all because of how soaked she is, but finally finds a comfortable spot to sit. Suddenly, she stumbles upon a card which she picks up and decides to observe. She notices that the card looks familiar, so it doesn't take her too long to figure out that it's a student identity card from Korea National University. It says the card belongs to Harang's neighbor, and it says he went to med school at her university. She didn't know that because they were in different departments. She doesn't understand why he would leave his student ID lying around. Because of how he treats the ID, Harang now feels like graduating from KNU isn't that big of a deal. From the ID card, we also get to know that her neighbor's name is Hyo Jae-woo. Suddenly, she feels like she is forgetting something important. In the end, she tells herself that it's nothing. When Jae-woo is done, he instructs Harang to go take a shower because he can't have her catching a cold in his house. Jae-woo also roughly tosses her a change of clothes, so she goes on to get changed. While she is at it, she thinks about how Jae-woo is behaving and is pissed because she cannot tell if he is being nice or a complete jerk. Later on in the bathroom, Harang finally gets to view herself and notices that all this time she wasn't wearing a bra. Since her clothes are now next to transparent, she screams in silence because she knows Jae-woo must have seen enough by now. However, Jae-woo is oblivious to her acting out, going about his business as usual. Harang, on the other hand, now understands the important detail that skipped her mind. 'Cause Jae-woo didn't say anything all this time, Harang sees him as nothing but a pervert creep. She scolds herself for willingly walking into a minefield. Now she feels like Jae-woo might have interest in her, but believes that if she keeps her head straight she won't get into any trouble. Well, that's easier said than done, so Harang knows she has to do more than that. She promises herself that she's going to stay cautious and avoid eye contact for as long as possible. With this conviction, Harang walks out of the shower to the living room where Jae-woo currently is watching a movie. She feels things are awkward right now and reaches for a beer with the hopes that it'll make things feel less awkward. In the process of getting the beer, she accidentally reveals a piece of her feminine qualities to him, causing him to choke. As he chokes, Harang, unconscious of what she had just done, wonders what was wrong with him. Nevertheless, she ignores him, reminding herself that all she has to do is keep a clear head. A few beers after, the clear head idea is out the window and Harang is staring at Jae-woo like she is tipsy. Jae-woo can tell she is totally out of it and notices she is this way because she has had one too many beers. To prevent her from getting even more tipsy, Jae-woo takes Harang's beer from her, stating that she has had enough to drink. He tells her that he will get her blankets for her to lie down, but before he knows it, she is on top of him, blaming him partly for her flunking her exam. This is an exam Jae-woo doesn't even know about. Jae-woo demands to know what exam Harang is talking about and what he did, while wondering why she is acting crazy. He tells her to get off him, but Harang stays defiant, questioning Jae-woo about his lifestyle. She wants to know if the way he lives his life is fun or exciting. If it is, she wishes that he would show her how to live like him. Jae-woo still doesn't understand what exactly Harang is saying, so she decides to explain it to him. Harang tells him that she knows he lives carefreely, sleeping around daily, and this comment seems to annoy him. Before she knows it, the tables literally turn and Jae-woo is now the one on top. He admits he doesn't know what Harang is thinking about, but rebukes her for saying rash things about him when she doesn't know him. Still, with his composed look, he tells Harang that he has no reason to sit there and listen to her judge him, no matter what he does. He adds that if Harang is disappointed with her life, she should do whatever she wants, as no one is forcing her to live the way she does. His tone starts making Harang feel uneasy, but that doesn't stop her from lashing out. She then slams Jaewoo's chest while accusing him of not knowing anything because he does what he wants all the time. Jaewoo returns, asking Harang to look around and tell him if his place looks like the home of someone who is content and living life on their own terms. The awkwardness keeps growing, with neither party saying a word until Jaewoo breaks. He brings back Harang's earlier request for him to show her what he enjoys in his lifestyle and offers to show it to her. With this in mind, he leans in for a kiss that Harang braces herself for but stops midway due to a change of heart. This change of heart is what prompts him to tell Harang to leave, scolding himself for thinking of doing anything with someone like Harang. He pulls away from Harang, but then she grabs onto his shirt, pulling him back to her. He is surprised by this move, but before he can do anything, Harang breaks down. She complains that she is the only one who has to live the way she does. Till he doesn't understand what she is talking about and urges her to let go of him, but she refuses, demanding to know why he stopped. She demands to know why Jaewoo would get down and dirty with anyone of any age and gender but her. Jaewoo maintains that he doesn't know what Harang is talking about and orders her to let go of him. Harang starts crying again, claiming that Jaewoo feels sorry for her, which is why he is refusing her. She accepts that he isn't good enough for him. She's a lousy daughter and is not as attractive as other girls, but she still wants this. Her whining annoys Jaewoo more, to the point that he claims she is driving him nuts. Harang keeps complaining when Jaewoo tells her that she is fine as she is. To him, she is good enough, so he begs her to stop crying and let go of his shirt. Hearing this makes Harang feel a lot better. She then asks Jaewoo if he wants to have a heated moment with her. He thought he had already handled this, nevertheless, just so she would feel better. He agrees that he does, but not today. Jaewoo refusing Harang only makes her feel bad again, accusing him of lying and not wanting to get intimate with her. Jaewoo decides to try and convince Harang that he does not want her to do something she'll regret, but ends up agreeing to get intimate with her just so she would be happy. He warns her that she shouldn't come crying to him afterwards and takes off his shirt. Again, he makes it clear to Harang that he is giving her all these warnings because he feels she is misunderstanding the situation. He has told her no countless times and practiced restraint as best as he could, but goes on to give Harang the intimacy she desires. By the time they are done, it's already too late, so Harang has to spend the night at Jaewoo's place. In the morning, Jaewoo sees her off. At his door, Harang tells him that she will wash his clothes and return to him, but he refuses. Instead, he tells her that whether she keeps them or throws them away is up to her. Since she can tell he has no interest in the clothes, Harang says she will do whatever she wants with them. She is about to thank him for letting her spend the night at his place when she hears her mother call out to her. Her mother is shocked and asks her why she is coming out of their neighbor's apartment. Harang immediately tries to explain herself, but her mother doesn't let her, reminding her that she claimed she was going to be spending the night at Dabin's place. The situation is already bad as it is, so to prevent it from getting worse, Harang hides her clothes before her mother can see them. Her mother, still very furious, asks Harang if she has finally lost her mind. All this time, Jaewoo just watches the mother and daughter, until Harang's mother tries to reel him into it. She does this by asking him who he is and why he was spending the night with Harang. To prevent this from getting too far, Harang steps in, pleading with her mother to hear her out because she is getting it all wrong. As soon as her mother lets her explain, Harang tells her that he was sitting alone in the rain when he came and helped her out. Harang's explanation prompts her mother to ask Jaewoo why he took her to his place when her house is just by his. She demands to know if he did that because he is dating Harang, and he affirms that they are dating. The confession causes a wave of disturbing silence to pass by the hallway, leaving Harang in disbelief and her mother in shock since they just moved into the apartment. It's obvious that Harang didn't expect such a response from Jaewoo, but she still thinks fast, claiming that they knew each other from school. She adds that even though they didn't major in the same field, Jaewoo is still her boyfriend. Harang's mother can't believe that this man, who looks like he hasn't shaved his beard or hair in a while and is wearing shorts with so many holes, went to Korea National University. Harang tries to make Jae-woo sound even better, informing her mother that Jae-woo even went to med school, a shocker that even she did not expect. With that, Harang's mother decides to believe her and gives Jae-woo a brief warning to send her home the next time something happens. She points out that even if they are dating, she is not okay with her daughter spending the night at her boyfriend's place this early on. Jae-woo claims to understand and apologizes to Harang's mother. His apology seems to have calmed all underlying tensions. Nevertheless, to take her mom's attention off Jae-woo for the time being, Harang offers to help her mother with the trash bag she has in hand. As they both leave to take out the trash, Harang's mother assures her they will continue their discussion at home when they get back. Meanwhile, Harang isn't even paying attention to her. Her attention is more on Jae-woo, who she whispers a promise she will pay back later. Jae-woo whispers back that she doesn't have to worry about that and just get lost. As soon as Harang and her mother leave, Jae-woo pulls out his pack of cigarettes to have a smoke. As he does so, he observes the weather. He believes it's nice today because a storm just passed. He also promises himself that he will never bring home strays again. He may have dodged a bullet back there, but Harang hasn't, and she knows that, so she starts apologizing once they get home. At the moment, her mother is giving her the silent treatment, so she feels her mother is going to smack some sense into her and braces herself for it. To her surprise, her mother doesn't have that in mind but wants to talk instead. She tells Harang that when she ran out into the rain the way she did yesterday and wasn't answering her phone, she got worried. Out of worry, her mother says she went out after her, running around the neighborhood like a crazy person. She adds that she was worried Harang had gotten into an accident, and Harang apologizes to her. Harang explains that she was planning to spend the night at Dabin's, just like she texted her, but the rain started pouring even more heavily. Hearing this pisses Harang's mother off the more, but as she tries to scold her more, she recalls what happened yesterday. Before Harang ran off, she accused her mother of wanting her to spend her life living the life her late brother would have lived. Remembering this makes Harang's mother calm down and adjourn their discussion. She instructs Harang to go to her room and change, and also informs her of the soy-marinated crab she likes, that her father went out and got for her. Harang is elated to hear this, celebrating as she goes to her room before she collapses on her bed when she gets there. On her bed, Harang recalls how she was caught by her mother just as she was coming out of Jae-woo's house. She also remembers that Jae-woo said they were dating, a lie he told without even batting an eye. She recalls something that happened last night after their intimate moment. In the middle of the night, she woke up to see Jae-woo was awake, drinking milk. Generously, he handed her the carton of milk, but before she took a sip, she asked Jae-woo if they were now in a relationship. Jae-woo was so shocked by the question that he spat out milk. To make sure he didn't have problems in future, he explained to Harang that just because they got intimate didn't mean they were dating. Harang reluctantly agreed and claimed she was relieved since she'd rather not date someone like him, and he felt the same about her. Harang then told him that she expected her first time to be calmer, but blamed herself for making out with an inconsiderate person. From all that, the only thing Jae-woo picked was that was Harang's first time. He was shocked to hear this, but Harang assured him he didn't have to worry, since she was not the type to cling to someone because he was her first. Jae-woo dropped his head in panic before demanding to know how old Harang was. She didn't notice his first reaction, but saw the way he reacted after she told him her age and argued that she wouldn't act clingy. She called Jae-woo Mr. and told him that she couldn't care less if he was way older than her or not, and assured him that he didn't need to worry about her. All Jae-woo did after hearing that was stress on how Harang called him Mr. Harang suspected that since that bothered him, he was truly a lot older than her. Jae-woo, who had always been cool, actually got offended, which was strange. Still, Harang paid no attention to Jae-woo. She left the room and walked into another where her mother was. This point, it became clear that something was odd, especially as her mother asked her if she slept with the pervert Jae-woo after failing her law exam. It got more suspicious when Harang tried to explain to her mother that it wasn't what it looked like. Her mother didn't listen to her and warned her not to attempt denying it as she could hear what was happening through the wall. Suddenly, Harang's mother yelled her name at the top of her voice, startling her back to consciousness. Turns out all that was a dream Harang was having, which was a mix of memory and guilt. With the way Harang reacted after her mother called her mother asks her if she is okay. She then asks her if she had a nightmare, but Harang claims she didn't. She is still recovering from the shock of the dream she just had, when she notices her mother has something in hand and asks what it is. It's a crab, and Harang's mother, to Harang's surprise, tells her to take it next door. Harang goes over to Jaewoo's place to deliver the crab, but finds it hard to knock on his door. She didn't want to see him ever again, but her mother wanted her to do this as her way of apologizing to Jaewoo for being harsh to him. Still, Harang doesn't see why she has to apologize to him, before recalling that he lied to her. Nevertheless, she believes that giving him crab for that is doing too much. Now, she has a reason to give him the crab, so she wonders what she should say to him. She can't tell whether she should thank Jaewoo for being a good liar or tell him that she was deeply moved by how good his acting was. She just can't come up with the words to use and bumps her head against the door out of frustration. Unluckily for her, it sounds like she knocked and Jaewoo asks who it is. Immediately, Harang panics, not knowing what to say. Finally, she decides to take the coward's way out, abandon the crab at Jaewoo's door and make a run for it. She is doing this, but makes a mistake that delays her escape. Suddenly, the door opens and tiny legs appear. Harang looks up to see who these legs belong to and spots a little girl. The little girl, however, is surprised to see Harang and asks Harang who she is. Instead of answering that, Harang returns the question, so the girl calls out to her father and tells him there is a lady at the door. The little girl's name is Shin Sol, and her father tells her that he had warned her not to be opening the door for people she didn't know. The girl's father is none other than Jaewoo, who is all dressed up in an apron and is surprised to see Harang. Harang is surprised even more, as Shin Sol calls Jaewoo dad. Later on, Harang and Jaewoo are seated at his dining table for him to explain what's going on. Harang disappointedly tells him that she didn't know he was off the market. This is a statement he and his daughter Shin Sol don't even understand, which is why she asks what market Harang is talking about. To prevent her from invading their conversations again, he orders Shin Sol to go to her room and play. She isn't happy with this, but when she is out of the way, Jaewoo asks Harang if she has lost her mind. Maybe she has, because instead of keeping quiet, she keeps talking about how Jaewoo has committed adultery with her and does other shady stuff. Jaewoo demands to know what crazy stuff Harang is talking about, accusing her of assuming the worst about him again. What she said gets him thinking for a bit, and when he is done, he walks over to Harang, grabs her hand and leads her to a room. He drops her on some poorly made bed when she complains that there is a child in the house. Jaewoo doesn't respond to her reason. He just gets close to her and promises he won't give her the full body treatment for free. It's unclear what happens next, but the sounds Harang is making attract young Shin Sol to the room. She peeps at first, before getting angry and angrily slams the door open, accusing her dad of acting unfairly. She also tells him that she wants to play doctor as well, and with that emotionless look on his face, he reminds her that he told her to play in her room. He then returns his attention to Harang and asks her if she understands why she hears those sounds. All this time he was a regular masseur, and it was the sound she made during her massage that made her understand that she was wrong about him. Sure, the adults are okay and an embarrassed Harang should get going, but Shin Sol keeps fussing about wanting to play doctor. Eventually, Jaewoo agrees that they will play doctor and tells their new patient Harang to be good and lie back down. He looks like he is enjoying this, but Harang isn't. Meanwhile, Shin Sol is elated, rushing to go get her stuff and return. Harang, who is supposed to be their patient, asks Jaewoo if they are really going to play doctor. He tells her they are and urges her to see this as payback for all the condescending looks she gave him. A few minutes later, Harang lies down, waiting to be handled by the father and daughter. Jaewoo acts like he is a surgeon while Shin Sol acts as his assistant. Harang did not think the pair would take this so seriously, but gets a big shocker when Jae-woo announces that they are about to start an ocular surgery on her. Harang is not comfortable with this at all but lets the father and daughter do their thing. When they are done, they announce to Harang that she has lost her eyesight and apologize to her for it. Harang panics, not getting up because they are still playing, but she screams loudly, questioning the efficiency of the play hospital. When they are finally done, Jae-woo takes off Harang's blindfold and tells her that she can leave now since they are done. As he leaves, she asks him if he is really married. Instead of answering that, he throws Harang a question of his own, seeking to know how she knew he went to med school at KNU. She explains that she didn't mean to find him out but found out because she found his student ID. Because she answered his question, he decides to answer hers with another question, asking her to access him and tell him if he looks like he is married. To Harang, since Shin-sol is actually Jae-woo's daughter, it means he is married, so he decides to nonchalantly tell her to believe what she wants. He adds that this is okay because Harang has a talent for making judgments and assumptions about people. Normally Harang would let Jae-woo leave after giving a haphazard answer, but this time she refuses to let this slide. She demands that he give her a straightforward answer since people might think he cheated on his wife with her. Jae-woo replies that Harang does not have to worry about that since no one will see it that way, so she assumes Jae-woo is divorced. He goes quiet all of a sudden, making Harang wonder if she messed up by talking about Jae-woo's wife and she has passed away. Harang can tell she has gone too far, so she apologizes to Jae-woo for prying. He tells her it's no big deal and is leaving his massage room while Harang smacks herself for always talking without thinking. When Jae-woo opens the massage room's door fully to leave, Shin-sol is at the door, pointing his phone at him as she tells him her mom wants to talk to him, so he takes the phone from her. The first thing Shin-sol's mom tells Jae-woo, however, is that he is crazy and Harang agrees with her. We don't get to know what Jae-woo and Shin-sol's mom talk about but just get a boost to some days after when Harang is at the library. Instead of reading, she is dozing when her friend Kang Dabin comes to wake her up. Although she complains that he startled her, he invites her to come outside so she can get some fresh air and wake up. Outside, she filled Dabin in on what's been happening and told him about Jae-woo's marital status. Dabin is shocked to hear that Jae-woo is married and exclaims in shock when Harang tries to quiet him down. He scolds Harang for how she behaved, warning her that she can't just go off the deep end because she failed an exam. She assures Dabin that she only found out the guy was married and had a daughter after the deed was done. She narrates to Dabin how Jae-woo's wife called and started yelling at him over the phone, so she felt uncomfortable and ran out before she could hear anything. Her confession gets Dabin thinking seriously, to the point that he asks her what the punishment for adultery is. Luckily for her, adultery is no longer illegal as they scrapped that law long ago. Even if it was a law, Harang explains that the second party would be punished for it only if they knew the marital status of the other person. Dabin believes that Jae-woo's marital status has simplified things for Harang, so she should steer clear of sleeping with Harang again. She agrees with him but for some reason doesn't look too happy about it, so Dabin questions her on why she looks so disappointed. Harang denies that she is disappointed, claiming that she cannot have anything to do with Jae-woo again, since she does not know how old he is. Dabin finds this strange, since last he checked, Harang was into older men. This pisses Harang off, causing her to throw a fit about how her interest in older people only counts for fictional characters and not older people. To her, those are two different things, and she goes on to preach about the difference between loving a 2D character and real-life people. Dabin decides to let Harang win this one, apologizing to her for asking before seeking to know what happened between her and her mom. Harang just tells Dabin that she and her mother had a big fight and reconciled and there is nothing more to it. From her cold response, he feels like Harang is not okay and asks if she isn't just pretending things are okay. Harang makes it clear that she doesn't want to talk about this now and wants to focus on getting ready for her law school exam again. From Dabin's point of view, Harang's mother should be content with Harang having graduated at the top of her class in KNU and stop putting pressure on her to go to KNU Law School. He believes that if Harang's goal is to become a prosecutor, it should not matter the law school she goes to. Nevertheless, Harang says that's just how it is on her mother's side of the family. Dabin knows Harang is talking about her uncles. One is a superintendent and the other is a judge, and I bet they all went to KNU. Dabin believes that Harang's uncles are different from her, which is more reason why she shouldn't be holding up to their standards. He even states that Harang's mother isn't really a big shot, so her expecting so much from Harang is unfair. Dabin had a point, but he missed something that Harang corrects. She is not being compared to her uncles but to her brother. She knows if it was her brother, he would have achieved way more than her uncles by now, but Dabin feels she can't be too sure about that. Harang agrees, but adds that they will never know her brother's true potential, which is why she is being pushed so hard. All the pushing only makes Harang feel like she is trying to catch up with a ghost she will never catch up to. Dabin decides to joke about it, stating that no one can catch up to a ghost because of how fast they move, but Harang doesn't find it funny. I mean, they are talking about her brother after all. To calm Harang down, Dabin gives her a lengthy explanation of the Earth and its rotation around the sun. He concludes that ghosts living on Earth must be overpowered since gravity does not apply to them, and finally gets Harang laughing. Dabin's mission to cheer Harang up is accomplished because it's easy for him to make her laugh, and he finishes things off by offering to buy lunch. Harang sits up happily, suggesting that they have beef or lamb, but Dabin suggests they get pork, which is the healthiest option. Harang refuses, however, claiming she is in the mood for something unhealthy. As she and Dabin leave, we see some suspicious-looking guy in the corner having a smoke. Once they are out of sight, the guy gets up and follows them, which is actually very strange. After lunch, Dabin and Harang head back, and Harang thanks Dabin for lunch. Suddenly, she starts talking about how she wants Dabin to get a house soon, and he ignores her, although he doesn't stop her from imagining. Harang is busy imagining, until she sees someone with sky-blue hair that looks familiar. Finally, she realizes that it's Sol, Jaewoo's daughter. Dabin doesn't know who Sol is, but Harang is too focused on the shady man Sol is with to give Dabin an explanation. As they lead Sol to a vehicle with tinted windows, Harang runs across the road, throwing insults at the man, surprising Dabin. Harang is so focused on getting to Sol that she runs carelessly across the road, almost getting hit by a car if not for Dabin. When she gets close enough, she yells out Sol's name, then stands in between Sol and the shady man, demanding to know who he is. She also accuses the man of trying to kidnap Sol in broad daylight and asks Sol if she knows the man. Sol shakes her head in denial, prompting Harang to tell the man that an attempt to kidnap a minor will earn him a prison sentence of up to 10 years. She warns the man that if he attempts anything funny, she will not hesitate to call the cops. The man, while looking frustrated, tries to explain that although he looks suspicious, he is not a bad guy. Unfortunately for him, it looks like he is getting close to Harang, so Dabin steps in, grabbing the man's hand to prevent him from making any sudden moves. Dabin promises the shady-looking man that if he attempts to lay a hand on the girls, he will break his hand. The shady man sees Dabin's threats as a bluff nonetheless. Harang, seeing that things are getting heated, begins to assess their situation. She observes that on the shady man's side, he has himself, a man with sporting glasses, and one more person waiting in the car. On their side, they have Luck, the gathering crowd, and Dabin, making Harang feel like they stand a chance, but that doesn't stop her from dialing 911. Crowd has already started talking, which may be why the shady man backs off, apologizing for scaring Harang and the others. He takes some steps back and assures the gang that he will not come closer so they don't need to try and stop him. He also claims he wasn't attempting to kidnap Sol and he didn't need to do that. Harang then demands to know why the man was trying to take Sol with him. She even threatens to call the authorities if the man does not give her a straightforward answer. The shady guy can tell Harang is serious and tells her that he is Sol's father. On hearing this, Harang takes her thumb off the call button. The shady man boldly claims Sol as his daughter and looks down at her with a warm smile on his face, but Sol hides behind Harang even more. Dabin and Harang don't buy the shady guy's claim at first, But when Harang compares the guy's hair and Soul, she can see they match. Again, she asks Soul if she knows the guy or not, and she repeats that she doesn't. The shady guy claims to feel hurt by Soul's response, but Harang argues that he should stop acting since Soul says she doesn't know him. The longer they stand there, the more people get attracted, and when Soul's acclaimed father notices this, he decides to leave for now. Till, before leaving, tells Soul not to forget to say hi the next time they meet. He also drops his complimentary card in Harang's pocket, assuring her he will see her next time. Harang agrees, so they leave. Harang responds boldly, asking the man if he has a death wish, but that just makes the shady guy see her as feisty and charming. When the man finally leaves, Harang checks on Soul to see if she is okay, and fortunately, she is. The onlookers, however, start talking about what just happened, causing Soul to start crying, so Dabin picks Soul up and suggests they get away from the crowd. Later on, Harang and Dabin are far away from the crowd, discussing the third man in the car when Soul spots Jae-woo and calls out to him. He is surprised when he hears her voice, but before he knows it, she runs into his arms. Jae-woo, still maintaining his calm, collected persona, picks Soul up and asks what's going on. Dabin, on seeing Jae-woo, remembers everything Harang said about him and wonders if they can really trust this guy to be Soul's father. She feels they can't believe what anyone says in such a messy situation. Harang tells Dabin to head home, assuring him he doesn't have to worry, and promises to text him later. Dabin asks Harang to call him if anything happens, which she assures him she'll do. She then whispers to Jae-woo that they need to talk, so they should go, and they do. When they get to Jae-woo's place, he puts Soul to bed and goes out to talk with Harang. He asks her to tell him everything that happened, but instead she asks him if Soul is really his daughter. He asks her what she means by that question, so she explains that she wants to know if he is Soul's biological father. Jae-woo hesitates at first, but then affirms that he is Soul's father and wants to know why he asked. Harang also hesitates at first, but then tells Jae-woo everything that happened. Because of this news, Jae-woo makes a phone call and spends a long time on it. He talks with the person on the phone about the person he feels pulled the stunt and scolds the caller for not dropping and picking Soul up from school. Meanwhile, Harang is out there observing the card that was slipped into her pocket. She assumed it was a business card, but it turned out to be a card with the name Victoria. She doesn't know if Victoria is the name of a company or person, wondering what kind of business card hardly has anything written on it. As she does this, Jae-woo is trying to calm the caller down and urges the caller to hurry over and pick Soul because Soul is scared. Harang, unaware that Jae-woo has ended his call, observes the card, wondering if some sort of hidden message or hologram will pop up. Jae-woo notices Harang is looking at something and asks her what it is, but she immediately hides the card, claiming she isn't looking at anything. He keeps staring at her, hoping that she'll spill, but she doesn't, before apologizing to her and thanking her. Harang assures Jae-woo that he does not need to thank her, noticing his hand on her shoulder and how he didn't hesitate to make contact with her. She suspects he's trying something, but as he keeps thanking her and touching her even more, she can see that he is just treating her like a child. When she finally had enough, she swats his hand off her head, ordering him to stop. Suddenly there is banging on the door, so Jae-woo goes to see who it is, warning the person not to break the wall down. The banging ended up waking Soul, who came out to see the one knocking was her mom. Hearing Soul call the person mom causes Harang to panic. She believes she should not be here. The mother and daughter bind, unaware of Harang's presence. Jae-woo then asks Soul's mom, Lee Jungja, why she is wearing a costume, wondering if she rushed here between takes. Instead of answering, Jungja scolds Jae-woo for calling her by her real name when she warned him not to do so. She doesn't dwell on this topic, however, since she is more interested in the person who saved Soul. Jae-woo tells her Soul is inside, but when he checks, she isn't there, prompting him to go look for her. When he finally finds her, she is hiding, but he doesn't understand and asks her what she is doing there. She's been spotted. Still, she shushes Jae-woo, trying to tell him to act like she isn't there. Harang really feels like she shouldn't be here and sees Jae-woo as crazy for wanting to introduce her to his wife. All her whispering, however, is in vain, since Jaewoo can't understand a word she is saying and asks her to speak more clearly. By this time, Sol's mother has already spotted her and runs to Harang to thank her, concluding she was the one who saved her baby girl. Doesn't look like Harang is in any trouble, but she feels like she is. Maybe it's because she feels guilty about what happened between her and Jaewoo. Enjoying this recap so far? Comment Harang below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao.